other cases and
Mr. Chairman, please note Aaron Fitzhugh arriving at 6:01.
very good, thank you. Anyone wishing to speak tonight is considered testimony. Your speaking does not have to be considered testimony. You're welcome to speak. With the length of the agenda and public speaking, I'm going to ask that 2 minutes be considered as time. The buzzer will go off at 2 minutes, and hopefully you'll be able to speak for 14 minutes at the end of the night. And when you are speaking, hopefully you'll address each item if you're addressing at the time. So, would you swear in the people who want to speak?
If you plan to speak before the board this evening or give testimony for any reason, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear and affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say yes.
Yes. We have proof of publication for the meeting, and there's no withdrawals. So if anybody has had any communication, ex parte communication, I'd like you to disclose it now.
Mr. Chair, I work for REG Architects, and recently REG Architects was hired as an architectural consultant for the project, so I will not be able to
Recuse
I
yourself
will have to recuse myself
from the meeting.
And another reason I'm here as opposed to just plain not showing up is we have a strict attendance policy, so we need to make sure that stays in check.
Your attendance has been noted. Good. Aaron, have you talked to anyone about the project?
No, I don't have any disclosures. I spoke with John Zerdy today. He just called to ask me if I had any questions, and I really didn't have any questions.
I talked to John Gertie, several condo owners, and are the names necessary? I try to remember. Charlie Seeley and Jim Tebby. I spoke to, did I mention Zerdy? I mentioned Wes Blackman. Several neighbors. I have a letter from a neighbor. That's about it. If I remember anything else. I apologize.
I had a voicemail from one of the architects asking if I had any questions. So I decided to wait till the meeting to see.
Ed Grimm is the other person I spoke to.
Yep, and the same for me too. I had a message from John Zerdy, but I did not talk with him.
All right. We will hear HRPB project number 1501400009. A major site plan to renovate and redevelop the historic Gulfstream Hotel and related properties, including an application for the Sustainable Bonus Incentive Program. And staff will give their report.
Hey, good evening, board and board members and the public. William Waters, Community Sustainability Director. We're going to give a brief introduction to the project for the listening public and for all of you. It is a lengthy agenda. We have divided up the request into 7 cases, but some of the cases have multiple parts. We'll do our best to be as brief as possible and afford the public and you as much time as you might need to ask questions. The applicant does have a presentation as well, and so we will jump right in. I do want to make note of the record that submitted as part of the record of tonight's proceedings are all the staff reports that were prepared, all the backup documentation that was submitted by the applicant at 4 different occasions, their justification statement, and the PowerPoint this evening. We do have that on a flash drive. If anyone would like to see all of that at some point or have copies of it, we can make that available, but it will be submitted as part of the record. As all of us know, I hope, this is what the Gulfstream looks like today on Gulfview and Lake Avenue. It is listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and it's also part of our local historic district. The request includes 7 parts. I'm going to give a summary of those, though you have mentioned that we will be reviewing the major site plan and request for sustainable bonus incentive program initially. There's also a request for a conditional use permit, which is required of all projects that are above 7,500 square feet, as well as the fact that this is going to be a hotel project of 50 rooms or more. There's a setback variance associated with the transformer that's part of the site plan, and then there are 4 certificates of appropriateness. One is for exterior alterations to the existing building. One is for an addition to the existing building on the back, on the south side. One is for new construction of 2 new buildings. One is a new 5-story hotel structure, and the other is a 2-story parking garage with parking on the top, which does include requests for historic waivers. We will get into part of that on the site plan because they are both tied together. And there's also a certificate of appropriateness for demolition of 2 existing buildings on the site. Because it's going to be a very complicated project, I do want to make note that this is the most complicated, largest, and highest value project the City of Lake Worth has ever heard. Keeping that in mind, there are going to be some areas where your standing and your level of purview and review is going to cross, because you are serving in the capacity of essentially a planning and zoning board for the first 3 requests and the Historic Resource Preservation Board for the last 4. We combined those things when we did the LDRs, land development regulations in 2013, so requests in a historic district could be heard all by one board. So we'll try to keep you on the appropriate portions of the code and how to review each part and parcel, because the level of review is a little different. So, just for general location, we are at the southwest corner of Lake Avenue and Gulfview. This is the property in question. It's also bordered by Lakeside Drive, First Avenue South, and is bisected by an alley. I do want to bring note to the board that this portion of the alley was abandoned quite a number of years ago, and this portion of the alley here is still within the ownership of the city. There's part of a request dealing with that alley that we'll get into. This is an image of our future land use map. It demarcates the area, which is in the downtown land use district. Our zoning map, which shows it as a downtown zoning category. This is east of Federal Highway, which is the hotel district, which does allow the right to go, if 50 rooms are provided, to a 65-foot or 5-story height limit, 6-story height limit. The proposed site plan in general, here's the existing hotel. There's an addition to the south. The transformer, which is part of a request later for the variance, is located here. The new hotel is to the west of the existing hotel, and the parking garage is on the northeast corner of South Lakeside Drive and First Avenue. The proposed landscape plan, which is also part of the site plan, is shown. There are appropriate buffers provided along the borders, the parking garage, and the addition. It has been reviewed by the city's arborist, and it is in compliance with the city's landscape code. This is a streetscape. This is the view along Gulfview. The existing hotel, the new hotel in the distance, the existing 2 condominiums, and you can see a shadow of an outline of the proposed parking garage. The view along First Avenue South, parking garage, existing condominium, historic hotel in the foreground, or in the background, and then the proposed hotel in the background. We did, as staff, as well as was brought to our attention today by members of the public, there are some scaling issues with the last 2 drawings. If you'll note, this condominium here is shown taller than the proposed hotel, but in this location here, it's shown as shorter. Staff looking at it, we do believe that this is actually the appropriate height, which should be shown at this building. In addition, this condo tower is shown taller than the historic hotel, and in this image up here, it's shown as shorter. It's a 7-story building. This is the appropriate scale, so just keep a note that the scale that's shown here of the existing buildings is incorrect.
Which did not come out of your office.
No, these drawings are from the architect and the applicant. We're going to jump now to the staff report for the site plan. I'm going to go ahead and apologize for the delay because there's a lot of documents that we probably have over 100 pieces of information. We're not going to go into all of them, but they are available for you to ask questions about if you wish. Okay, this is a standard major site plan and sustainable bonus incentive program staff report. It does include in its body the information for the setback variance for the transformer, as well as the conditional land use. There's a table that provides what the requirements are and limitations under the future land use category of downtown, as well as the land development regulations for this area. And then we have a table that next to it prepared from the applicant's submission as to the proposed. You'll see here that the lot area is approximately a little over 79,000 square feet. We'll go down a little bit. The maximum lot coverage for buildings is allowed to be 60. Their proposal was 48%. The floor area ratio allowed here on a large lot, which is over 7,500 square feet, is 2.1. They're at 1.86. The required parking at 161 is based on a combination of two things. One is the vested number of parking spaces that are at the site now supporting the existing hotel. And then in addition to that, the required parking for the new hotel and retail space. The total requirement is 161. They are providing 171 as shown on the site plan, which includes on-street parking. Back up for a minute. Some things to bring your attention to, that under the downtown zoning, the front setbacks of buildings are 10-foot minimum. The maximum is 22. It can be raised from 10 feet by increments of 8, 10, or 12 feet. However, on the Lake Avenue and Lucerne Avenue, which are major thoroughfares in downtown, that stipulation is a 5-foot front setback, which can be increased to 13, 15, or 17 feet, with the intent being public space or public access is provided in that area, such as a plaza, a colonnade, or something to serve as pedestrian activity and to serve as connectivity along those two major thoroughfares, which are in the historic district. At this time, the proposed new building is set back 22 feet and has a significant additional setback, so the major bulk of the building is over 40 feet from the property line on Lake Avenue. The side setbacks are 10 feet. They do meet that on South Lakeside Drive. The side is 10. You will notice in the site plan they are asking for a waiver for the addition. The setback requirement on Gulfstream is 10 feet. I think they're proposing maybe a setback of 1. I don't remember the actual number. Staff is generally in support of that historic waiver in order to maintain the context and continuity of the building, keeping in mind that the existing building does extend out into the public right-of-way on Gulfstream. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about at some point in the requirements of the site plan is to prepare an easement to rectify that issue that it was built in the city's public right-of-way and that's never been formally addressed in the history of the building. It is a colonnade area. It is not enclosed air-conditioned space. The rear setback is 17.5 feet. The historic building has that. This is the area where we have a little bit of an issue with the transformer location on the variance, which is coming up. As I described earlier, under the Sustainable Bonus Incentive Program within the Hotel Incentive District, which is east of Federal Highway, you can build to 65 feet or 6 stories. The existing building is 73.5 feet. Under the building code, it does qualify as a 7-story building. There is a mezzanine. And the proposed hotel is 5 stories at 65 feet. The impermeable surface requirement is 80%. They're right at 79, which does include some incentives. The code does allow for permeable pavers to count as each 2 square feet of a permeable paver will count as 1 square foot of impermeable surface. They've also proposed a number of green roof elements which have not been included in this, which we might get in discussions of those later in tonight's presentation. Some general background information. I think everyone's pretty clear on the history of the Gulfstream, and it has had a very illustrious and colorful history. The project is located in the area governed by the city's major thoroughfare guidelines as well as historic district guidelines. And we'll get into some of those requirements in a little bit. The existing building is a Mediterranean Revival inspired Spanish mission style per the National Register nomination. We have had some, it's not the most definitive, to be clear, architectural style for that building. But so what we have, and we all love it and appreciate it. Some background on the application, which we've been in discussions with the applicant since purchased the property almost 2 years ago. Their submission came in December. I think there have been 3 subsequent submissions of additional information, clarifications, and corrections in the drawings. As it mentions here, they're proposing 7,500 square feet addition to the historic hotel and approximately a 74,500 square foot new hotel with 87 rooms. Combined, there'll be 174 rooms in the 2 buildings. The 2-story parking garages providing 145 spaces, and it also is proposed to have approximately 2,500 square feet of retail along South Lakeside Drive. As I mentioned earlier, the conditional land use request or conditional use approval is the facilitation for the hotel. Other parts of the hotel that would be covered under that are the operation of the restaurant, pool deck events, rooftop events, a bar, any other things associated with accessory to the principal use of the hotel. I won't go into all of the additional requirements of the C of A's at this point. We'll get to those when we get to those staff reports. The Sustainable Bonus Incentive Program, as you may know, the City Commission adopts under our fee schedule the value that must be met for each square foot of a building above the 2nd floor. Today, that value is $5 a square foot. You can meet it a number of ways. One way to meet the whole thing is to have a LEED certified or equivalent building, such as Green Globes. Another way to meet half of it is to incorporate a historic preservation project and renovation, which the Gulfstream is. The other half can be met through designation under Florida Green Building, and the applicant here has proposed an Energy Star certification, which is very equal and probably a little bit better than that program. As such, we are putting as one of the conditions required of a site plan approval is that they post a performance bond to ensure that certification is reached. That bond is required to be a little over $100,000. It would be required to have the certification within a 1.5 years of the CO of the new hotel, and if it's not met by that point, then the city would collect on that performance bond. That would need to be, if you choose to move forward with an approval, that would need to be one of the conditions of approval. As proposed, there are 3 additional stories that are above our standard 2, and those are each 14,800 square feet, with that area being 44,400 above the 2nd floor on the new building. The value required to be incorporated is $222,000. Half is met by the historic renovation, and the other half is worth under Energy Star certification $111,000. And it is some information, and we can go back into that later if you wish, how they plan to meet the Energy Star certification. But I won't get mired in that detail right now. And this information is from the applicant's justification statement. We have reviewed the general approach of the plan and the general nature of it and found it in compliance with our downtown mixed-use zoning category and future land use. It is a use that we have been trying to encourage, especially with the adoption of the hotel incentive program in 2013 and the changes we've made to the comprehensive plan in 2012. Here are the criteria for the conditional land use, but I'm going to skip over those for right now and come back to those for the conditions because I want to get into the issues that are really germane to the site plan, since that's our first thing that we're looking at. One of the first things for the site plan design qualitative standard is harmonious and efficient organization. In general, the site plan does meet this intent. Staff does have a couple of concerns. One is the fact that the new proposed hotel does not meet the front setback requirements as stipulated under the land development regulations or the major thoroughfare guidelines. We are a little concerned that even though they've met the minimum required parking, the activated uses of the hotel will likely generate far more parking than is provided. So we've asked for a traffic management plan, which is different than a traffic study. The area of downtown is a concurrency exemption area, so we don't really have to concern ourselves too much with how much traffic is generated. We do need to concern ourselves with how the traffic is managed, and that would include ingress, egress, overflow parking, access to parking, and the effects that parking and servicing would have on the adjacent and nearby residential neighborhoods in the historic district. I know there has been some concerns raised about the retail space fronting the parking garage on South Lakeside Drive. The city's major thoroughfare guidelines, which include guidelines for general organization of buildings, does encourage retail or active uses along the front face of the parking garage, but it's not necessarily a requirement. If the parking garage were located on a major thoroughfare, there would be a requirement to have activated use on the first floor, or at least the area fronting the street, such as Lake Avenue, which could include commercial, office, or retail. The issues raised for the preservation of natural conditions, we do have a proposal for the removal of 2 historic structures. We'll get into that under a secondary C of A. As I mentioned earlier, the screening and buffering seems to be appropriate with the walls, the green walls, and landscaping that is proposed. The applicant has attempted through the design of the parking garage to provide an enhancement of residential privacy. Most of the activated areas are geared inward or toward the intercoastal waterway. Emergency access, this project has been reviewed by the Palm Beach County Fire Rescue, as well as Palm Beach Sheriff's Office, with some comments made. At this time, they do feel that it would be, that criterion is met. There are some stipulations to improve an existing easement on the alley, as well as another new sort of easement on the alley part that has not been abandoned, to ensure that it has a clear width of actually 14 feet and a vertical clear height of at least 14 feet to allow access.
Say that part again with the alley.
The alley is only 10 feet wide, but during the site plan review, it was noted that for necessary improvements to the infrastructure and access to things, both the electric utility as well as the water sewer utility would like to have at least 14 feet clear along the alley, both horizontally and vertically, to allow trucks to access. It would not be a major location for fire access. That will most regularly happen from the street, but fire did raise the issue they might be bringing emergency response, such as an ambulance, down the alley to pick someone up. And so they wanted to ensure they had clear access down that alley as well. The alley is proposed to be 14 feet clear on the area that has been abandoned, and the applicant has proposed the alley to be 2 ways on the area where it has not been abandoned. And we'll go back to the site plan if you have questions about that. Pedestrian circulation, there is an emphasis on encouraging and supporting pedestrian circulation. However, staff did raise the issue that because the front of the new hotel is actually hotel rooms with more like a secondary entrance than a primary entrance, the pedestrian circulation is not overly encouraged on the half block that the new hotel is on. The major thoroughfare guidelines and the intent of the comprehensive plan is to encourage activated use and pedestrian activity along the entire length of Lake and Lucerne. We do feel that it's a weak point of the project that the front of the new hotel is not more activated, and the entrance there does not serve as a primary access point, which is required under the major thoroughfare guidelines, but it does serve as a secondary means of ingress, egress. And the colonnade in the front is private terraces for the rooms on the first floor. It is not open to the public. That may have changed, but that's how the plans are drawn. We talked a little bit about ingress. Egress, there have been a number of issues raised about the level of circulation activity along the alley. Those of you who are generally familiar with the area of the alley, there are a number of condo units along there that do provide rear doors that are practically on the setback line of the alley on the east side. There is also some parking for the Gulfstream condominium that is proposed to be re-angled from an angled parking to a 90-degree angled parking. That condo also has all of its trash pickup along the alley, and its collection of bins is along the alley. I'm not quite sure, we've not heard how the condominium feels about officially that change in their parking arrangement. It's not technically part of the site plan because it's not on the applicant's property, but it does appear that that is necessary in order to take care of some of the egress issues. And we should give due consideration to buffering somehow or ensuring the protection of the public, because the original easement for the area that was abandoned does stipulate that the area should be free and clear for both pedestrian and vehicular traffic, and there is a level of pedestrian traffic along the alley that should be noted coming from the existing condominiums. With the on-site circulation and off-site circulation, the major issue that we have, there is going to be valet-only parking in the parking garage. There's a valet drop-off part on front of the Gulfstream on Lake, and a valet drop-off point on South Lakeside Drive in front of the new hotel. Staff does have some concerns, and there have been issues questioned of us as late as today on what is the management plan for getting those cars from the valet area to the parking garage and then back from the parking garage to where somebody would pick up their valet point. Is it the same location? Is it another one? We do also have concerns about overflow parking in time when there's a special event or multiple special events where the parking would quickly exceed what is provided by the parking garage and on-street parking. And again, remind you that the on-street parking cannot be designated for their exclusive use. We do allow it to be counted, but it would be open for anyone who would be wishing to park along South Lakeside Drive, First Avenue South, and Lake Avenue. The applicant has proposed to pull basically right-of-way, the paved area on First Avenue South to the north some to widen that street to help facilitate two-way traffic and to ensure that parking could be facilitated on both sides of the street. You'll see that on the site plan. They did incorporate that impervious surface change in their overall site plan calculations. Number 9 is covered. We do have some late submitted requirements from both public services as well as the water sewer utility for inclusion in a proposed improvement to the easement on the abandoned area as well as the remainder of the alley, which is all being proposed to be covered with impermeable pavers. On the off-street loading and parking, a loading dock is provided, but if you look at the site plan, it will be very tight for anything more than a 6-wheel delivery truck of probably a 20-foot bed to access that point. So one of the conditions that recommended is to limit the size of delivery vehicles accessing the alley, and the 2 loading docks that are shown on the site plan. One is at the restaurant back area of the proposed hotel, for the Gulfstream, and one is in between the parking garage and the new hotel. There are locations of 2 dumpsters. You'll see that on the site plan. One is accessed from Gulfview, one is accessed from the alley. We do think that based on the studies that we've done for the hotel district, the city's comprehensive plan, the work that's done by the Community Redevelopment Agency, that this is a major incentive